Good afternoon, sir. This is Travis Knapp. I'm going to be presenting the flight plan and execution project. So I'm going to start with a flight overview, then I'm going to discuss the flight, and then my thoughts on the G1000. So to begin, we're going to start at Denton, which is Kilo Delta Tango Oscar, and we're going to be flying to Foxtrot 82, which is Lubbock Executive, via the Swambar 1 Burma transition. I'm going to be in a Cessna 172 with IFR rated equipment, G1000 GPS, and autopilot equipped. My mission is I'm going to be flying to visit my mom and dad in Lubbock with my non-pilot spouse. I used ForeFlight for planning and then used X-Plane for simulation. Here's my ForeFlight flight plan data. You can see on the right is Denton, and on the left is Lubbock Executive, and then in between is the Swambar 1 Burma transition GPS waypoints. And then this is just the Jeppesen plate. We're going to be flying below the MEA today, but I'm not concerned. We're just flying below 2,000. We're well above the MOCA, and I'm going to be navigating via GPS. All right, here's our nav logs. We're going to be flying 2.5 hours today to Lubbock and burning 24 gallons of fuel. Alrighty, so this is the PFD screen of the G1000. So I'm just going to begin with loading the flight plan. I learned on a Garmin 430, and going from the 430 to the G1000, it made a lot of sense, and I'm really glad that they kept a lot of continuity in the buttonology between the two devices. So this felt very natural punching in my departure procedure, and I felt very comfortable figuring out how to use the flight plan functions and procedure functions for the G1000. So here I am punching in the Swambar 8 Burma transition. There wasn't a Swambar 1 just because of how X-Plane is configured, but it's the same GPS waypoints. All right, so this is now, I'm on the runway. I've got my takeoff clearance, and this is my PFD display. Going 60 knots, and I've just rotated. And just wanted to point out this function of the G1000 that on my speed tapes, it overlays my V reference speeds. And I just think that that is extremely helpful and really helps with situational awareness, especially for switching aircraft. If I'm going from Cherokees to 152s to 172s, all those VREF speeds are different, and it really helps to have them laid out on the tapes to make sure that I'm not making a mistake based on what aircraft I'm flying. All right, so this is me cruised out up at 8,000 feet. Between the Botch and Swambar GPS waypoints. Currently have the autopilot activated. I just wanted to point out a few things on here. One, on the flight plan menu on the bottom right, it's just extremely intuitive on how to read that. I'm between the Botch and Swambar waypoints. It's got my bearing and distance on there. The same information is displayed at the very top with bearing and distance. I could make that go away if I hit the flight plan button. It would hide that, and I would just have the information at the top. Currently, I know the GPS is flying because the top in green, it says AP, and then on the left of that, GPS, meaning it's tracking the GPS laterally, and then it's holding me at an altitude at 8,000 feet. I've never flown with the GPS before, and flying this simulated was amazing. Not having to focus on small, minute corrections to keep me on altitude or keep my heading where it needed to be, and I got to focus on other things and worry about talking to ATC, where I'm at in my airspace, what my next waypoint is, what approach am I going to do once I get to executive, and all those things. It really frees up your mind to make some decisions about other things. All right, so moving over to the MFD. This moving map gives you unparalleled situational awareness. It shows your GPS route overlaid on it, and it lets you cross-reference that with ForeFlight, so you're not off in how you programmed your flight plan. And then again, you can pull up even a larger flight plan option menu here on the right. I've got it pulled up, and right now I'm between Swambar and the Rue GPS waypoints. And then one thing that the G1000 displays that I don't have in my steam gauge carbureted Cessna is I've got the RPM, I've got the oil pressure and oil temperature in my airplane. However, I don't have fuel flow, I don't have EGT, and then I don't have precise engine fuel tank indicators. They bounce around. They're not very reliable. I've heard people say the only two times they're reliable is when they're reading full or when they're reading empty. So that really helps you lean out the airplane, know exactly how you're operating your fuel burn at a much more accurate rate. All right, going into what I thought about the G1000. So as I discussed, it's an intuitive flight planning program. You go in there, you put your departure in, it makes sense. If you need extra waypoints after your departure, it's very easy to load those after, and especially on the MFD, you can go and see it all laid out on there, overlaid on the map, and then also listed in full order without having to scroll to different pages. The close scan pattern, it really helps, and it really beats the steam gauge and the time consumption trying to complete a scan. Autopilot function, especially in IFR conditions, it's an amazing tool to keep you level and not have to consume your entire attention of keeping the airplane on altitude and heading. The engine data, the fuel savings, and the power performance improvements you'll get by knowing your exact EGT is worth its weight in gold. You're going to save fuel and you're going to save time in the air. The moving map gives you unparalleled situational awareness, getting to see exactly where you're at. If you do have an emergency, you know where the other airports are, and you don't have to look down at your lap at ForeFlight every 15 to 20 seconds. You can keep your eyes up on the instruments and outside the cockpit a lot easier. And then extra data like true airspeed, fuel flow, ground speed, wind data, outside air temperature. All those things are extremely important in certain situations, and having the ability to access them easily is extremely helpful. All right, a few things that I was challenged with by the G1000. So first off is flying exact numbers. You know, when you're climbing out at VY, I want to be at VY. So it's like 67 or 70 knots, whatever your VY is. I'm looking for that exact number, and I tend to fixate on that number, and it tends to make me lose situational awareness of the aircraft and where I'm at in time and space. Same thing for flying the pattern, trying to be at specific airspeeds instead of a general range like I normally fly when I have a steam gauge. Autopilot is a little complicated, but I think with time I would be able to master it. And then lastly, possibility of distraction. Each one of these menu pages that has a bunch of information in it, you can spend a lot of time and energy going into these different menu pages, swapping out maps. And I think if you do that poorly, you could lose situational awareness of the aircraft as you hyperfixate on certain things that the G1000 offers you. My only suggestion for usability was the autopilot best climb rate. So climbing to different altitudes using the autopilot, you can either use airspeed, pitch, or vertical speed as a reference for the GPS to climb at. I wish there was an option where I could say climb at best cruise climb or climb at best rate. And the reason you can't just put an airspeed in there is because as I change altitude and as I change temperatures and pressure, my aircraft is going to perform differently. And so the cruise climb and the best rate of climb is going to change based on my altitude, temperature, or pressure. So I wish the G1000 would be able to take all those, it's reading all those things. It's reading outside air temperature, pressure, and I wish it would give me a best climb rate. And so I could just say climb at cruise climb or climb at best climb. Alrighty. In conclusion, the G1000 offers a ton of options and really gives you situational awareness and all the information you could ever need as a pilot. Especially in IFR conditions, flying with the autopilot, I think it adds a lot of safety feature for you not to become spatially disoriented. However, it does take you some time to become proficient in the G1000 as opposed to steam gauges, which are fairly intuitive. The G1000 is complicated, especially paired with the autopilot function. And if you're not properly trained, it could cause you to fixate on certain things and not fly the airplane. But if you hold to the mantra of aviate, navigate, communicate, I think that I'm going to be okay flying this G1000 until I'm proficient enough to fly it just like I fly my steam gauges.